Hello and welcome. Today we're going to discuss the Kongdoo, Panthera, and Envyus matchup, specifically the Oasis Gardens round. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick second to give a shout out to the professional players that play this game for us. They put in so many hours, they put their heart and soul into this game. It can be so draining. They have all this pressure on them. And if you're aware, there was some drama after this match. I won't get into the details of that, but if you know what I'm talking about, I think it would be great if you could just take, a minute of your time to go on social media and just really support your professional players. Tell them they're awesome, that you're a fan, and try to lift up try to lift up their morale. There's plenty of hate and drama in this community. I think we could just take some time to really appreciate our professional players. So okay, that aside, and actually on a side note, also this analysis isn't meant to bash or anything like that. It's purely for educational purposes so that we can all just kind of elevate our understanding of the game. So okay, let's get into it. All right, so right here, notice what Kongdoo Panthera does. They're going to send Tracer this way. Well, presumably, I can only surmise as much because we don't have the perfect perspective. Pharah and Mercy are going to be generally up here in the sky, and then you're going to have the rest of the forces, the rest of the three, just on the ground, right? So you can already see there's this nice kind of division of forces. Tracer's going all the way on the right with a different path, and then you have the rest of the team kind of going this left side, right? But even on this left side, the Pharah and Mercy, in terms of distance, they have a nice healthy space between the people on the ground. So you can already see there's this nice kind of separation, and they're not clumped up. On the other side, you're gonna see Envyus clump up. So here, you're basically gonna see all 6 of them. It might be 5, but it's kind of hard to tell because of the quality and the perspective. So it looks like at least 5 members are going to come through here, go into this pathway over here, this hallway, and then try to go for the high ground. This is not nearly as elegant. If you watch any of my videos, you always see you see me asking people to not clump up. It's so crucial. Clumping up, you're setting yourself up for failure because your enemy team will surround you, and you're just less flexible and mobile that way. And not to mention, if you're playing against a Pharah loves teams who clump up. It's her bread and butter. It's so much easier to get to do damage and get picks that way. So in this case, you'll see this right now. I don't want to say it's easy because obviously this Pharah player is super skilled, but it's a little bit easier to get these picks when your teams are doing stuff like this. So again, not to discount the skill. The skill is amazing. Envyus is making it a little bit too easy for this Pharah player. So, and that's it. This fight's over. It's really unlikely that Envyus can come back from this. They wisely back off. Cool. However, it's a little bit too little too late. I believe Kongdoo Panthera gets a D-mech kill, so it staggers the timing. Yep. Cool. And then the diva has to go and kill herself, right? To make sure that she gets her suit back faster. Cool. So not much to say there after that. The main problem was the clumping. And also, we could also fault the diva player for not getting that defense matrix up. Definitely a mechanical issue there. But again, from a strategic standpoint, much easier if you just don't clump up like that. You kind of spread your forces a bit. So actually, let's kind of just give maybe a sample, well, I guess rather an example on how to do this. So here we go. Okay. Let's just say, off the top of my head, you send maybe Zen and Soldier kind of on this side. You send, who do they have? Diva, Winston, Lucio, kind of on this side of the pillar. And then maybe you send Tracer like around the point. And here's the thing about King of the Hill. You have 30 seconds on that first matchup. And it breaks my heart because I see so many teams, solo queue, scrims, professional matches that don't utilize those full 30 seconds. I remember there was a Lunatic High match where actually, I think it was on Lijiang Tower Gardens, their Winston got booped if I'm not mistaken. They immediately backed off, and Tracer kind of snuck around the point, like around the side, and just waited there for like the time to go down to 0. She contested the point, Winston came back, and they actually won that fight. So you have so much time to work with and maneuver and position and rotate and dance with your opponents, and it makes me sad to see teams just kind of like, oh well, YOLO, let's just kind of go in and see what happens. So you know, I really think that there's an opportunity here for, again, like you could have Tracer go for a really deep flank, you know, contest that side, see what they do, maybe back off if it's not working out, maybe go in if it was open. And in this case, this route actually would have completely been open. So basically, you know, everyone can kind of go in and flank, or, you know, or rotate backwards as necessary, right? Like everything's open when you're flanking like this. So, you know, this is just one example. There's tons of ways to do it. Depends on the strengths of your team, who's good with what characters, and yada, 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 what the enemy has. So again, I just would have liked to see a little bit more positional, rotational play from Envyus here. I think it was a wasted opportunity. Yeah, so cool. Let's go back. All right. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so here, Kongdoo has a pretty nice setup in terms of defense. We'll kind of go over that in a second. So, if I'm not mistaken, it kind of just looks like this. So you have Pharah and Mercy kind of up here, right? Kind of dancing with this whole area. In addition to Winston, he's on that little window, if I'm not mistaken. Then you have D.Va and Tracer here. And then I believe Lucio was back here. So with this kind of defense, basically what they're trying to do is they're going to rotate depending on how their opponents rotate, right? So like if the opponents, you know, came around this way, they would then, you know, rotate similarly. Like I think you understand. I don't need to really write this out this way. But you know, they're just going to kind of, you know, rotate around depending on what their opponents do. Now the problem with what Envyus does is, and I'll use this top one. Again, I think it's actually, we'll check right now, but if I'm not mistaken, it's all 6 clump up right here in a perfect ball. Again, just, you know, it's clumping, it's not ideal. Again, I would have liked to seen a more separated attack, like maybe, and because Kongdoo was, you know, really heavily stacked onto the point, like in this general area over here. Great, that means Tracer can then go this way, right? She can get like a super deep flank. Then you probably send, I don't know, Winston and D.Va and Lucio like over here, like to kind of contest this way. And then, actually, hold on, let me redraw this one more time. So, just to clarify, Tracer probably goes around. Winston, D.Va, and Lucio probably contest this side. And then you probably have Zen and Soldier somewhere around this kind of gate, right? Something like that, where, you know, depending on where the opponents are, then Envyus can you know, back up or go forward accordingly to match them, and then try to surround them, because that's the goal with this kind of example that I'm giving. And again, you can do it so many other ways. But again, you're trying to surround them and see kind of where their weak spots are. You know, maybe the Kongdoo tries to collapse onto this Soldier and Zen, they back off. And then guess what? Tracer, Winston, D.Va, and Lucio, then they get the high ground, they get control of the point, they can push them and sandwich them again. And spacing is key here. In order to pull something like this off, what you would probably have to do, you'd probably have like Soldier, you know, just to get into the nitty-gritty details, Soldier would probably be like right here, somewhere like around this area. Zen would have to be really far back, in line of sight of Soldier, and with like just enough line of sight onto the point for discords and right clicks and left clicks. But you know, as long as they're not being too aggressive, then they can, you know, continue this dance until someone starts pulling the trigger, someone sees a weak point, someone makes a mistake, etc., etc. Because far too often, what I'll see is, you know, like the Zen will, let's delete this. You know, where teams try to do this kind of play, Soldier's like all the way up here, and then Zen's like right behind him. Okay, you're just asking to get dove in this situation. Whereas if you're more positioned around walls and you got a nice healthy space, you're not clumped, then you know you're much more likely to win that fight, stretch out the opponents, and you know, just kind of work with that. So that's enough about that. Let's continue. Okay. So here you're going to see this really nice barrage. Basically, again, because Envyus clumps up. So there's Lucio, there's Winston, there's Soldier. I think I see Zen, and I think Tracer. There's Tracer. So all 6 right there. Yeah, and yeah, there was Nyata. Cool. So, and you know, and to Kongdoo Panthera's credit, they use this gate super well, right? And then you can see here, look at these nice rotations. Tracer flanked around this way. Boom. She has a nice angle. Then you have like Winston and D.Va, if I'm not mistaken, on this side with Lucio, and then Pharah here in the sky. This is like such a it's actually quite perfect. But again, it's because Envyus allowed themselves to clump up. It's far too easy. So you can imagine a world where, let's go back a little bit, where like Zen's maybe back here, or on the other side, but this side would be fine too. Soldiers maybe like, I don't know, like somewhere in this general area. Then you have Tracer on the point behind, and Winston, D.Va over there too. So there's so much more to I guess what I'm trying to say is there's so many things you can do besides this, and I think there's so many more effective strategies here. So anyways, not too surprising, still amazing, of course, as far as godly, but again, I would have liked to seen a little bit more rotations, more flanking, more repositioning by Envyus. Okay, cool. Hello, sorry, quick ninja edit. I wanted to point something else out about that Pharah barrage that we just saw. Someone might say, hey, that D.Va didn't DM. She wasn't there soon enough. Isn't that a decision-making error, mechanical error, whatever? To which I would say, yes, you could make a case for that, but I wanted to make a separate argument concerning that. So let's go through that. So here we have Envyus, right? They're basically stacked up here, as we talked about. And then we had Tracer, Pharah, and then I think Mercy also on this side. And then the rest of Kongdoo, Panthera on this side. So basically you have like that, that sandwiching effect we talked about. And the point I want to make here is that D.Va is basically set up to fail in these kinds of situations just in general. When you're asking your D.Va to cover two sides of a fight, even if it's, a short distance like this, you're just setting your D.Va up to fail. That's a really, really big ask. And in this particular example, Tracer and Pharah were on the same side, so that makes it easier for the D.Va. But again, just overall, this is just a really big ask for your D.Va. Again, like we talked about earlier, separating your forces just much better for so many reasons. And this is one of those reasons. When you're clumped up like this, it just makes it harder to fight. And I don't really fault the D.Va here. I think that, again, yes, the D.Va could have anticipated it better, could have been there sooner, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Definitely the case. That being said, strategically, when you clump up like this, makes it so much more difficult to make those kinds of plays correctly and respond to them sooner, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, just wanted to point that out. Thank you. Okay, cool. And actually, I'm not quite sure why Mickey doesn't, why he doesn't just kill himself here, because actually this is the problem with the next fight. So right here, so yeah, so remember that Mickey doesn't kill himself. So right here we have Tracer. Actually, you can't really see her, but she's right here. This is excellent. This is exactly what I like to see from Tracers. She can hide. She can go here, wait there. She could go back, but I don't like that. I think that's silly. I think she should go really deep behind her opponents, and she's safe there, right? Because either they don't come for her, or they do chase her, and guess what? Tracer's super mobile. She can just keep running away, stretch out the offense like we talked about, or rather the defense. Cool. Unfortunately, it looks like somebody gets a little trigger happy, starts the fight a little bit early. Yeah, but look, you can't do that. Mickey's dying, has 75% health, 75% to the mech, so not quite there yet. And he's kind of a resource hog, right? Because look, he's about to die, and if I'm not mistaken, he gets heals from Zenyatta, so he's kind of being a resource hog, in addition to not doing as much work as a D.Va, a suited D.Va could do. So this fight starts off on the wrong foot. Envyus gets a little bit excited, starts the fight off way too early, and they get really punished for it. To their credit, they do pretty well in this fight. Unfortunately, again, in my opinion, mostly due to them starting the fight with Mickey not being suited, they're going to lose this one. And then we're going to see a critical error. So cool, pulse bomb, we get the resin response. Now would have been the perfect time for Envyus to say, you know what, it's 6-4 right now. Unlikely that we pull this off, guys. We need to disengage. And disengaging is one of those things that's not very sexy, but it's such an important skill for teams to master. It's really hard as a shot caller to make that tough decision to say, hey guys, like, bail. We just bail, like, because it feels good. Some players are like, man, I'm in the zone, especially when you have someone like Effect who can get kills. You just think, oh man, like, come on, we can bring this back. But it's so important to not do stuff like that. And you're about to see why. So check out this Mercy. I think she's at what, 1%? Or I think that says 1%. She just used res, right? Now watch how quickly she gets her resurrect back. So we're fighting. Come on, guys! Like, oh, let's win. Unfortunately, it's not enough, right? Like, Envyus is too far to disadvantage after the res. It's just not going to work out. Hey, look, 52%, 53%. Yeah. So, and then look here. So, Envyus's Winston just burned Primal Rage. So to his credit, he gets the response Diva ultimate because he demechs her. So right here, he goes for it. Okay, cool. So he made her use the ult. Fine. And I think that, and actually I do think that that's a good choice by this Diva to remech. So cool. But look, res is at 93%. And yes, you could probably call BS on res and say, oh, res is overpowered. But, you know, at the professional level, you have to understand, you know, how quickly res can come back online. So that disengage needed to be called instantly as soon as that res came in. So yeah. So, and actually, this is going to bite them in the butt on this last fight because of this res. So, cool. So, okay, so actually, now I want to give a lot of props to Envyus because here, so we see a similar thing. Tracer is going to go for high ground. Oh, sorry, that was horrible. High ground. Diva and Winston are going to come out from here, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely Winston. Actually, I'm not sure about Diva. And then Soldier and Zen are going to come over here. So, actually, similar to that first example I gave, this is an excellent strategy. Unfortunately, there's some mistakes. And actually, just one last thing. I would actually prefer Tracer to come from the opposite side. Unfortunately, there's no time for that at this point, so this is totally the right call. Anyways, cool. So you're gonna see some mechanical errors if I recall correctly. So right here, Taimu gets some sick tracking. He almost kills her, and I'm not quite sure why he doesn't just burn his attack visor now. Because if, in my opinion, he just separated the Mercy and the Pharah, and he could have gotten either of them. So he goes for the reload and then gets zoned out by Winston, and it's, you know, at this point it's too late. He kind of missed his opportunity. So unfortunate misplay there. Maybe in the comms something happened and, you know, he didn't want to use it. So totally, you know, we don't know. But right now it feels like a misplay. Yeah. So, and then like we talked about earlier with that res, Envyus gets a nice kill onto Winston right here. Boom. There it is. And then the quick res. And that's really critical because, again, we can't quite tell. We don't have perspective of the Mercy. Presumably she's probably dying. She's probably under fire. So this res not only brought back Winston, but as far as we may or may not know, this saved her life. So, or at the very least, just, you know, delayed her dying, or just made, you know, just the point is that this res was extremely valuable. And, you know, now it's going to be much harder to clean up this fight. So that's pretty much the end of the analysis. I think kind of just the big takeaway here, I guess, you know, two takeaways are the lack of rotational play and lack of setting up fights in a very patient manner by Envyus. And then second, that disengage was so critical. So, and then I guess kind of as a corollary to that first one is just kind of not clumping up. That's they kind of go together, right? Like, you know, making sure you're positionally, spread out, and ideally, and, you know, kind of splitting up your forces, dividing your attack a little bit. And it doesn't require much. Like, sometimes it's just like a 5-1 where you have all 5 of your forces and like a flanking tracer. Sometimes that's enough. And I think we saw Effect trying to do that. So kudos to him. Yes, so I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think if there's any other more wrap up that I wanted to do. So definitely, you know, the clumping and the spreading out, and then the disengaging. So you can see here, actually, in my opinion, this was kind of a stomp, but this actually, like, Envyus, if they just kind of tweaked a couple things about the way they approach their fights, I think this could easily be in the opposite direction. I think they could easily win this match, or certainly this round, if they just kind of tweaked a couple of these things. And, you know, and we didn't talk about team comp at all today. I don't want to get into, you know, maybe if they should have switched to something else. Actually, I think their composition was perfectly fine. Just, again, the way they were approaching, engaging, and starting their fights, in my opinion, not so great. So that's the end of this video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Thank you.